Hey everyone, I'm David Berkowitz back with another edition of AI Insiders with AI Marketers Guild by Marketecture, and got a really fun speaker today. You can see his face popping up on the slides and in the video feed, Jeff Sundheim from Google and AI strategist and perhaps even evangelist there. I actually met him through another guest of ours who's on the call today, Mark Coleman, an old friend, and our paths have crossed so many times. I even saw him show up in my building one day because I was neighbors with his daughter, and my daughter went to school with his granddaughter. So all kinds of connections actually brought Jeff here. And when I saw Jeff speak at an event that Mark was hosting, and beyond Jeff's amazing title and work, I was inspired by some of the work. I think sometimes I'm seeing a lot that's out there. I always know I'm just scratching the surface. And even in work with Google, and they know a few things about publicizing work and making sure brands and agencies know about it. I learned a bunch of new things. And so, Jeff, so excited to have you share this with more of our community, and so we can all learn a bunch of new things from you today. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, David. Thank you for inviting me to join today. And, it is funny, you talk about all these connections and so on, even with AI and so on. There's, the world is about human connection and all these different people. And I think one of the cool things about AI and just the waves of technology we've seen over the decades or centuries is that hopefully it frees us up to do more things that we love and to make more connections and so on. And so I think that's really the most important thing. So, but anyway, thank you for having me here today. I've been at Google for close to 18 years, was a DoubleClick before that, and Apple before that. So I feel like a dinosaur, but it's super exciting. The world is constantly changing. People say 18 years at Google, what must that be like? And I sort of liken it to that movie, 50 First Dates. Because I feel like I've had 18 first years at Google, because every year it seems everything changes. And so anyway, that's sort of the scoop. The title of what I'm going to talk about today is the new level playing field, because that's really what I think it is. Okay. Is that AI is providing us, and I'm going to be at Penn State, my alma mater, tomorrow. They're not having the greatest football year, but in truth, it is the new level playing field. This is a shot of Penn State's field, because in reality, as anxious as a lot of folks are, whether you're 18 or 80, I know there's a lot of people that are anxious out there. Is AI going to take my job, or is AI going to take my grandson's job, or whatever? The real story here is that, AI anytime there's disruption like this, whether it was the internet, or mobile, or the printing press 400 years ago, there's disruption and it creates tremendous opportunities. And granted, certain things do get disrupted and go away, but there are tremendous opportunities, which we're going to talk about. And I think those folks who embrace it and are scrappy and say, you know what, everybody's going to have access, or does have access, to the same tools now. So what is going to differentiate me from somebody else that has it? Or if, let's say you're in the lumber business, you're 84 Lumber versus Lumber Liquidators versus Lowe's versus Home Depot. What's going to be the difference? How do you differentiate yourselves? And it's that, because you're all using the same tools, that's going to be the true differentiator. I want people to feel open here to asking questions and so on. This should be a conversation, not me just speaking all the time. So anyway, that's sort of the way I think about it, and why I'm saying the new level playing field. So it is the new level playing field. Everyone has the same access, and your skills, and this is, everybody's skills in collaborating with it, will set us apart, and will set each individual apart and each company apart. And so before we get into that a little further, I'm going to talk about what I do. My passion, in addition to work, is I'm a sculptor, and there's definitely a strong AI component to sculpture. I don't know if anybody is familiar with this sculpture. This is a piece I did that was in Riverside Park a few years back at 145th and the Hudson River. it started out, the right-hand image is how it started out. It was 8 inches tall. This is what we call a maquette or a model. And I made that out of flashing that you buy at Home Depot for roofing. And this is the proposal I made to the Riverside Park Conservancy. And then they accepted that. They loved it. I was very gratified that I was given the invitation to produce it. And then it went to 13 feet. Now, in the process, it's a gigantic sundial. And you'll see here that it's aligned the shadows. It's developed with looking at the shadows that are cast at the 4 different solar events throughout the year, the 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices. And what we did was I had a collaborator who did these benches, if you will. I created the main sculpture, and then he created in green benches that corresponded to the shadows that are cast at the 4 different times of the year. We made this in 2016, and the process took about 6 weeks. Now with AI, that process would be a matter of just a few days. So this just shows how AI could take a process and a lot of grunt work that really doesn't benefit anybody, all these calculations, and can condense that so that I could spend more time and actually fine-tuning the sculpture, thinking about other things that are going to make the sculpture more impactful. This is an image of what the final sculpture looked like on the West Side Highway, on that park. I don't know if anybody passed it over the years, but there's a bike path there. It's now down in Key West. So this sort of illustrates the fact that even in my passion job, I use AI. And this is an example of a new a rendering I did using AI for a commission down in Key West as well. I'm going to play it real briefly so you can see the type of, I showed you that model that was 8 inches tall. Now this with AI is how I'm going out and showing different sculpture parks what's possible.
So you can see the level of detail. It was pretty cool. This was much more personal than those possible.
So that's really where we're going in terms of technology.
Welcome to the future of AI.
Our technology. Let's go to the next.
Welcome to the future of AI in digital marketing.
So this is something I created for my presentation tomorrow. And that was done using a tool called Google Flow. I'm not sure anybody's familiar with that. But Google Flow, essentially, I took a photo of a presentation I did, and I added this prompt: make the man swirling a magic wand while animated stars come from it, while he's singing, "Welcome to the future of AI and digital marketing at Penn State." Probably everybody in this call, I know you're very familiar with AI, but these are the types of tools that I think are what are the future, and just it's the sort of scratching the surface as to what's possible. Now imagine you get somebody who's doing playing with AI, you get somebody just out of school who's doing some really cool things. They could develop a short content movie or a full-length feature movie basically in their dorm room. You don't need to have funders and big production companies behind you anymore. You've got the ability to do this yourself, or at least pitch an idea. In the ad agency business, this is changing everything, where, obviously creators are a big thing, social media. It's putting power in the hands of regular consumers, which is really turning marketing on its head.
And Jeff, it looks like it's stuck on the Eagle visual.
Oh, okay. Good to know that. That's sort of, I'm surprised that you're still not seeing beyond Eagle?
We're still seeing the Eagle 360 view here.
Okay, let me go back and stop sharing, and we'll do this again here. This just goes to show how even the best laid plans. Let me screen share again here. Yeah. So I had, okay. So basically this is Sundar's quote. And it's basically talking about how AI, from a Google perspective, in terms of search, is revolutionizing what we're doing specifically at Google. Essentially, it's allowing, and I don't know if has anybody familiar with AI overviews and AI mode in search. So that has significantly, if you saw Google's most recent results, that has increased. The usage there is tremendous. And I don't want this to be a commercial about Google, but I want you to understand why we are so involved in it and why we think it's, people say, is Chat GPT going to kill Google? And, you never know. 30 years ago, Bill Gates, May of 1995, Bill Gates sent a memo to senior level managers saying that, entitled The Internet Tsunami. And he basically was saying, we need to get on board with this internet thing or else we're going to get behind the curve. And even in 1995, when Microsoft arguably had the largest share market, had the best brains, had so much resources, and the Department of Justice was after them, if you may recall, they still, 3 years later, after marshaling all their resources, were blindsided by these two students from Stanford that eventually turned into Google. So I think even today, no matter what Google's doing, no matter what Chat GPT and OpenAI are doing, we could all be broadsided by some upstarts. And you know what? That's evolution. But this is, queries are getting longer and more complex. We're seeing that absolutely. Everybody on this call, probably the way it used to be, you'd put 2 or 3 words in. Now it's easily 10 or 15 more words. And that's what's sort of driving all these different AI functions. Back in April of 2024, and is anybody on the call familiar with tokens?
Probably to some degree, but maybe not on the most technical level.
So tokens, and I'm not developing code here, but tokens are essentially the unit of measure by which AI compute is billed, if you will. Google Cloud bills its clients based on number of tokens they're using. And tokens are basically, it's a unit that a 30-second video might be 200 tokens. That might require that much compute. A quick query that you say, write this resume, redo my resume, might be 5 tokens. Well, in 2024, in April of 2024, there were 9.7 trillion tokens used across all Google surfaces. And when I say Google surfaces, I mean Gmail, YouTube, all these various things. A year later, in April of this past year, there were 480 trillion tokens used that month. That was a 50-fold increase. In October of 2025, there's 1.3 quadrillion. That's not a number I'm very familiar with. Tokens were used. We can see the exponential growth here. And this is truly probably the best measure of the adoption of AI. And this is why data centers are, being built at such an extraordinary rate, and why all these, private players like Google and Microsoft and Amazon are getting into the utility business, the power generation business, because data centers require so much power. I didn't plan to go deep in that, but this is what's happening. And the more that consumers get a taste of what's possible with AI, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface, the more that's growing. Now you might say, how are we going to sustain this in terms of power consumption? And I think equally in terms of exponential growth is the technology to do this in a more streamlined power consumption way. So that is the hope, and that's where I think things are moving, is that we're going to consistently see this be far more power efficient. But it's a major issue, and anywhere I go and speak around the world, the hands get raised speaking about a data center that's being built, within the vicinity of that venue, and how it's impacting culture and so on, and community. I'm going to stop here because I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to continue on. But any questions or thoughts here?
Anyone want to chime in?
Well, I can continue, but
Yeah. Well, yeah,
we'll continue.
and we've got some great examples coming up. So yeah, why don't you keep going?
Great. So I'm going to talk about, I mentioned AI overviews, and we rolled that out. More than 100 countries are using AI overviews. This slide is now obsolete as of last night. I saw a number that we're now at 2 billion global users every month.
Wow.
So extraordinary. And this is what, it's going from a short query, men's running shoes, to how to pick the best men's running shoes with padding, cushioning, and shock absorption for a beginner runner on asphalt. This is the type of thing that I know I'm searching for, and a lot of consumers are. And this is why we have to sort of be on top of that. We at Google do. And everybody's got to. And then it's especially things like when you don't know what you want. That's just a specific thing as to, I know what the running shoes I want are, but let's say I'm on the subway or I'm somewhere else and I see something and I don't know what it is. I don't know the name of it. All I know is I want to get more information. And this is where Google Lens and other technologies, iPhone's got a camera, everybody's got this technology. This is where...
Okay, baby, you can have a both ways. Both ways. Can you wait as you want? Can you wait as you want? Can you wait as you want? Can you do it me? Get you like this? Like that.
So essentially, this is called circle to search, and it's the ability to, you're on the subway. Years ago, I got a watch. I saw somebody in the subway wearing a very cool digital watch. And at the time, we didn't have this technology. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit creepy if you do this, just with somebody and you don't get their permission. But I had to ask this guy, where did you get that watch? And he told me the brand, and he got it on Amazon. So I went and got the same thing. But if you see something on the street, you see something in a store or whatever, this is what folks are using. And 20 billion users now are using this same technology. And it's opening up a whole new level of search that we just didn't think of before. 25 years ago when Google started, there was that little search bar, that search window, and you typed in 2 or 3 words. Now, consumer behavior is radically changing. And once they get an appetite for it, it's changing even more. So when I talk to a lot of companies, and that's what I talk a lot to our largest advertisers. They are saying, well, what should my AI strategy be? And really, that's not the question. I think we really need to get to, really, what does your strategy need to be that AI can enable? So let's get back to your core focus, whether it's if you're selling running shoes, if you're selling conferences, or if you are, I'm on the board of the Art Students League. If you are trying to get new students to come in and study printmaking or sculpture, what should your strategy be, and how can AI enable that strategy? Because it really needs to be rooted in what you're trying to do. And then let's think about it. AI second focus. So I want to show you where AI is in terms of graphics and video, and I'm sure we're all seeing it, but this is something cool that our ad agency did based on a spot they created for us at the Super Bowl back in February. They basically created the spot in the standard normal way with normal photo shoots and so on. And then as a fun experiment, they did it in AI as well. That AI version never ran. You're only going to see it here, but they did it to sort of illustrate what's possible now with AI. I'm going to show you both videos at the same time, and then I'm going to ask you if you can tell me which one was generated with AI. So here we go. Hopefully this will come through on Google Meets. It comes through. Let's see if it comes through here.
My grandfather taught me everything I know. Our little family business has worked their tails off.
We never miss a detail, and those things matter.
The legacy and the tradition and the craft, it's what I live by.
It's nice working with your family.
We're a 2-person team. We're also busy moms. The financial side can be very daunting.
If our schedule gets messed up, everything falls apart.
We don't have a lot of time.
We're not professional.
Using Gemini has been a game changer.
Gemini in Google Docs helps me write website descriptions. AI allows us to make quick business decisions.
It translates everything live. It was magic the first time I saw this.
Gemini in Gmail really lets our staff save time drafting emails.
It makes my response more concise and so much better.
Marking up a concept, so we can do that in a matter of minutes.
We have time to keep doing what we love.
And it opened up the world to me.
This is a beautiful thing we're doing, and we're proud of what we do.
Okay, so let me ask you, which do you think was generated with AI?
At the top.
Any other votes?
Some for the bottom here, yeah. This.
Okay. It was the top that was generated with AI. I'm curious, what made you say the folks who voted for the top, what made you say that?
The lighting.
It was smoother.
Yeah.
It was more perfect looking.
Yeah, it was very perfect looking. Yeah.
Right.
Jeff, was the bottom one provided as a reference to create the top one?
In certain cases, yeah.
I see.
In certain parts of it, yeah.
So it wasn't just a prompt. There was an actual reference, video, image, something used.
In certain cases, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, that was just it was a very involved process, but yes.
I mean, honestly, if you didn't know that, if you gave a script to a production team and you gave a prompt to Gemini and neither had ever seen each other, then I think you'd have a very different outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, so that's the ways, some of the key ways to tell was one of the things that at least Gemini doesn't do a great job of, and I think a lot of the LLMs same, is the handling text at this point. And you'll note that there was one image where somebody was wearing a t-shirt and the verbiage on the t-shirt just didn't make sense. And the other one was, there was a child in the bottom video, and Gemini will not render images of children. So at this point, that was sort of two cheats there. So let me get back and see if we can move on to the next slide here. There we go. So essentially, we see AI as truly unleashing the full power of search. As I mentioned, 20 billion visual searches using Google Lens a month. And Notebook LM, has anybody used Notebook LM?
Someone's even DMing me about it in the chat today. It's like, yeah, I've got a lot of Notebook LM fans in this room.
Great. Somebody said every day?
Every day.
Awesome. Tell me, what do you use it for?
So I'm a consultant. We're part of a 140-person consulting firm, and we have different clients. And each client, it's just a given. If we're going to go in and do an assessment, there's lots of stakeholder interviews. All the notes for that are just the baseline for it. If we're going to go in and do branding, like having that messaging architecture and all that tonality, and it's just the perfect thing. And then as we go along, just on the project. So as it's like you can do all the docs. Sometimes you can do a few of the sources. So you sort of want more nuance over time, but it's a life changer, a game changer for our internal project cadence.
Absolutely. This is so, I don't need to say any more about it. This is one of those things.
Can I ask you something? I'm going to put you on the spot, and it's okay if this is not known or you're not at liberty to say. Yeah. But in case it has been out there somewhere, at some point, is Google going to combine Notebook LM and Gemini so I can have the full AI access and all the folders and organization? That's what I can't wait for. And then I'm all in with Notebook.
Yeah, I can't. First off, I don't know that. I can quite easily say it's not that I won't comment. It's I don't know that for sure, and they're smart not to tell us. I hear you. It's so funny because some of these productivity tools that they don't seem like game changers. They don't seem like it's going to be a revelation. But this is the kind of thing where we're seeing AI inform and power a lot of these cool things. It was like Google Docs years ago. You'd walk in and Google Docs sort of changed, I think, the way of collaborating. And I know that Microsoft's got the capabilities too, but it's that type of functionality which has sort of changed the way we work and, plan trips together and do these things. This especially, I agree with you that Notebook LM is one of those things that all of a sudden it allows you to do so much more. And it's an example of, okay, AI giving you the opportunity to do and create and have so much more options because you've got this stuff at your fingertips.
But it's the UX that works so well there.
So
yeah,
Studio, IDE environment.
I love it. Hey, you know what? You're gonna be the pitchman here.
I have a question regarding search. Do people's queries affect search results or ranking? If a lot of people are asking about a certain topic or a product or a brand, will that affect the ranking of search?
Well, if the more that is, the more there's several different factors that go into, ranking of a search result. But one of them is the more folks that are, referencing it, and find it relevant. And as well, one of the other factors is also other sources that link to it, that reference it. It's all about sort of, credibility and relevance and how many, and also analyzing the content of that site and saying how relevant is that content. That's where the search, the browser's sort of crawling all the content. So it's several different things. It's absolute true relevance of content. It's then how many people are going to it, and then how many other sources are referencing it. And it's that's that sort of kaleidoscope of what goes into the ranking of a search result. But I got to tell you, I'm not a search specialist per se. I come from the other side of the world, which is more the paid display ad perspective. But that's essentially the rudimentary facts about search.
Jeff, I got a question. Sorry. You know how are you familiar with HeyGen? With the avatars, you can create avatars and stuff like that. Is Notebook LM ever looking to create something, how they have the voice activated avatars? Are they looking to have actual avatars at some point?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know all the things on the roadmap for Notebook LM, but it's a good question. And one of the things about all the products at Google, one of our key innovation concepts is launch and iterate. I don't know if you're familiar with the term here, but it's essentially, and it's pretty intuitive from what it sounds like. It's, like when Gmail was introduced, it was Google announced at the beginning, like, this is a work in progress. And we're going to be having like weekly updates. And so we want to hear from users about what you want and what you need and how we can improve this and where the bugs are. And that's exactly what we want to hear as well for things like Notebook LM. It's like, we're putting it out there. We're sort of moving at the speed of light. We feel like we are, and I think we are, to get this stuff out there. But it's all, like we're putting the wings on the airplane as it's going out there. So we want to hear from users as to how can we make Notebook LM? How can we make Circle to Search? How can we make all these things more relevant, more impactful? So I love that idea.
Gonna be my next question. How can we be part of, I guess, the beta of all these things that are, is there like a beta group that you guys reach out to?
There's not, to the best of my knowledge, there's not a beta group for Notebook LM. There was, for instance, Gmail was in beta for some time. So I would do the same thing that I would suggest you do, I'd go online and do a quick search. Is there, how do I provide feedback for Notebook LM? How do I provide feedback for all these different products? There's no beta group per se that I'm aware of.
Okay. So when you guys go launch a specific product or have an idea, there's no like focus group that, you guys.
Well, there definitely may be, I'm sure There is, UX, a lot of UX research and that type of thing. Absolutely. As to the process, each one I think is very different depending on the product, and whether they've got some sort of a beta, or an alpha and beta methodology, or whether they're just doing that type of sort of closed research with UX design. Everyone is super different.
Okay.
And imagine a company as big as ours, we've got all these different groups and units and business initiatives that are out there. But I would do a search on that. I would suggest you do that and say, how can I provide feedback on Notebook LM? And I'm sure you're going to find something in that regard. So this is great.
Yeah, somebody put it in the chat. So thanks.
That's great. So, and this is just an example, but I'm not going to go through it because I think you guys are the most powerful testament. I'm presenting this tomorrow at Penn State, and it's just an example of, I just put in a link to the creamery, which is literally a creamery on Penn State. Started as a land grant college, and it was an agricultural college, and so there's a creamery on campus, and it generated an 8-minute podcast talking about the Penn State Creamery. But I'm sure we've got a lot more relevant, interesting stuff as well that you guys have come out with. I'm going to show some examples that David referenced because I think they're really cool. And it comes from my background in terms of personalization and using different data sources to really drive home concepts. So I'm going to show you some things that are really net new and I think sort of revolutionary with AI, stuff that just wasn't possible before. So the first thing, anybody familiar with Pods, the container company and storage company? Probably everyone is. They came to us about a year or two ago and they said, we want to do something cool. We want to use Gemini for something cool. We said, it was part of a program. We had sort of put the initiative out there. We said, any ad agency and clients that want to do something really interesting with our new Gemini technology, come let us know. And they said, we do want to do this. And they were part of our Lighthouse program where we got a few different advertisers and agencies together. And they basically, in the course of several months, developed with Gemini an ad unit that I'm going to show you now, which basically uses the Pods, the side of the truck, as the world's smartest billboard, if you will. And it's sort of fueled and informed, this digital billboard, by a bunch of different third-party signals that are using weather, time, traffic, subway congestion, and so on. So I'm just going to play this, and I think it will show you that what's possible when you completely think out of the box.
Smart, it would know where it was. Beginning here. Years, the Pods container has been more than just a moving container. Driving the streets of America, it's served as a giant billboard reminding people of Pods. So we teamed up with Google Gemini and turned a Pods container into the world's smartest billboard. A billboard so smart it would know where it was, what time it was, traffic conditions, weather conditions, subway delays, and then generate hyper neighborhood specific lines in real time.
So they did that over the course of that ran through the entire city. There were 1,600 headlines that were developed, and copywriters were involved in working with Gemini to develop those headlines, which were basically rooted in the Pods sort of tone and manner, but headlines, based on all those different signals. It's the type of thing that, whereas they might have had one copywriter working on an ad campaign in the past, they had to have, that one, maybe they had like one or two, actually more copywriters doing a lot more interesting, varied work because this creative demanded it. So I think that, this type of technology sort of gives us and gave Pods and their agency the possibility to do a lot more and open up a lot of new possibilities. So I'm going to show you now results because that's the most important thing. Actually, I don't think I've got that here, but the results here, they had 66% more website visits and 33% more signups for just actual conversions. So that was pretty strong. So whether you're doing something just for the sheer nature of AI or whether you're doing something to drive results, obviously we're all trying to drive results. And this definitely got that kind of interest. This is another example using just weather signals. And in this case, for NERTEC, so NERTEC's a migraine medication. And what they found with this is that barometric pressure is a key indicator of when there's going to be migraine onset. And so NERTEC used weather data, specifically barometric pressure data, to sort of identify, and they developed using a Google technology and a voiceover technology, different ads that were customized by region and would be triggered to run based on barometric pressure. So I'm just going to play an example of what that sounded like for one of the key areas.
And right now we're still seeing the pods example. So
migraine weather alerts.
Sorry about that. Let's just stop sharing and go back to, I don't know what's.
It's really glitchy.
We got to clearly use meat from now on. I think that's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to, and if nothing else, this was my opportunity to sell Google Meets. No, joke. So let's go back to, let's see if everybody can see that. Can you see now the NERTEC slide?
Yeah.
Great. So here we are on the NERTEC. So I'm going to play an example of what this sounded like.
Migraine weather alert from NERTEC. Hello, Austin. There's a change in pressure heading your way. Take care. This may trigger a migraine.
Okay, that seems pretty simple, but the ability to do this at scale over 200 different DMAs using this technology, this was something that was pretty straightforward. And then the great thing is you're able to test. And so let's say we do several different messages and we sort of see which ones work and which ones not. This gives marketers the way to be able to do this and have a larger test and learn framework without putting a tremendous investment in. Turns out this worked really well for them, so they have continued to do this technology. So that was just first example using third-party data signals. This next one is using first-party data and personalization, and several different, and some of these are less tech than others, but for instance, SAS. Back during COVID, and all the airlines, of course, were just absolutely devastated in terms of their business. But after COVID, as they were coming out of it, they said, we need to figure out a way to get more business from our existing customers. And so they used a lot of our predictive modeling technology, which, by the way, predictive modeling is more not so much Gen AI, or it's really more old school machine learning, but they use that to sort of understand more about their customers. And what they found was a lot of their business customers, especially, liked, they had other facets to their travel and their interests besides traveling for work. And they created, SAS created several different ads to appeal to their different customer profiles, if you will, or personas, that emphasized things like fine dining or extending their trips for business. And they ran these ads specifically to those types of customers, and they saw a pretty significant lift, a 34% increase in online bookings. The ad creation in this case was not AI generated, and it's a fairly low-tech example, but it is the fact of using consumer insights, using your first-party data to really understand and find new patterns and really figure out how to capitalize on that. And then the third example or third group is agility and personalization. And this, I think, these examples are, I think, sort of the wow and the sizzle beyond the pods example of what's possible with personalization and how you can sort of create concepts that are really cool. So this first one's for Cadbury, the chocolate company that, we have it to some extent here in North America, but it's big in EMEA and India. This particular example is a campaign they did in India. Just coming out of COVID, a lot of the small retailers throughout India were devastated as well, because a lot of people just did not go out, and so these small retailers their businesses were tanked. And so Cadbury came up with a way to generate interest and traffic for these smaller retailers. So they took probably, at least in the Indian market, one of the best known actor in that market, Shah Rukh Khan, who's a very famous movie star there, and they took his likeness and his voice, with his permission, of course, and created technology where he basically was the pitchman for any number of different small retailers. And I'm going to show you this example, but it's all fueled with AI.
Big brands have big money to hire famous people, but not the small guys. And they are the ones who are still hurting. Presenting Shah Rukh Khan, My Ad.
Welcome, Shah Rukh Khan.
He almost certainly has more devoted fans than any other movie star in the world.
Biggest movie star in the world.
Forbes have called him one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
We helped small businesses by making Shah Rukh Khan, the world's biggest movie star, their brand ambassador.
इस दिवाली आप भी ना अपने पास वाले फैशन नोवा एम्पोरियम से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करना। सिद्धि विनायक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स से लेटेस्ट स्मार्टफोन खरीदकर धमाकेदार सेल्फी पोस्ट करना।
क्या कर रहे हो? मीठा लाए?
We used machine learning to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's face and voice to take the local store names in the ads.
आप भी ना अपने पास वाले चॉइस ऑफ फैशन से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करना। रॉयल फैशन से ही, एमके क्लॉथ्स से ही, पास वाली लक्ष्मी कलेक्शन से ही कपड़ों की शॉप।
Different versions of the same ad with local store names were targeted as per the PIN code of the viewer, showing them only the nearby stores. But it is impossible to cover all the stores. So we gave the power to the people to create their own version of Shah Rukh Khan, My Ad. Any small business owner could promote their stores through their own social media networks like WhatsApp forwards and other social media pages.
It is Shah Rukh Khan selling your store, man. If you're a small-time retailer or a merchant, what an amazing
This is pretty cool, wouldn't you say? The fact of being able to sort of democratize some of this technology that up until then you had to be a large advertiser to get a pitchman like that. So just wanted to share that. Hopefully now I'll be able to switch to the next slide, but we'll see based on. Bottom line is, not only was that sort of an impressive tech perspective, but there were 130,000 different versions of the ad created with 30 million ad views and a 35% jump. Ultimately, the biggest important metric in Cadbury's business. And then lastly, in storytelling, I think there's a big example. No marketing conversation would be complete, at least from a large client perspective, without a company like a Nike. And Nike, who arguably does some of the most coolest creative and gets a lot of views and impressions and traffic, they created something completely out of the box that was not possible using before AI. And they basically did it around Serena Williams, who is arguably the most impressive athlete in the past few decades. And they basically took footage of her 1998 Grand Slam win. And so the 130,000 hours, you'll hear about this in a second. And they did that versus her 2017 last Grand Slam win. And they created a virtual match between the two versions of Serena. So I'm going to play this.
And yeah, we're still seeing Cadbury. So.
Okay, let me stop sharing and we'll get to the other one.
Okay.
Can you see the Nike logo?
Yeah, Nike's up now.
Great. So they created this ad, which I'm going to show you.
Serena Williams isn't just the greatest tennis player. She's the greatest athlete. We wanted to look back at how she elevated her style of play over time. Through archival footage and advanced AI, we generated 130,000 games between two Serenas from two different eras. 1999, the year she won her first Grand Slam, versus 2017, the year she won her record-breaking 23rd. Let's see how Serena evolved as a champion, from the best in the game to the best ever.
In tennis, there are no bigger dream matches than this one. One Grand Slam title against 23 Grand Slam titles. Here we go with game one.
1999 to serve.
So we're not going to play the whole thing. In fact, just, I wanted to show you an example of what it looked like. Can anybody guess which version of Serena won?
2017.
Any other guesses?
The biggest tennis geek on the call says the later one.
Any other guesses?
Because she evolved.
We went 1 for 99 in the chat.
Okay. It was 2017. So it just goes to show experience beats the agility of youth any time. But in this particular case, this is how it did. I'm going to stop sharing and then go to, because I know it's going to happen again. We're going to lose this. Let me just.
Yeah, and we're getting close to time too. So
yes, I'm just going to wrap this up because we are close and perfect on timing. Actually, is that Nike saw a 1,000% jump in video views over anything else they'd ever posted. And that's Nike, who's posted some pretty impressive stuff. So this just goes to show that, when we do things that are over the top, AI allows us to do things that we've never thought about before and can create extraordinary results. We'll sort of leave it there. One thing I wanted to plant the seed is that there's a lot of Gen AI tools out there. I'm going to skip ahead here a second. But the bottom line is there's a lot of Gen AI tools that consumers have access to. But you know what? They could create some if you're a marketer and you've got branded content and now consumers can do mashups of it. It's a whole new world. It could be a blessing or a curse. It could be a curse because if you really care about your brand guidelines, they could be doing anything with them. It's a blessing because if you do it right and you think about it in the right way, you can create a whole new cadre or legion of creators and fans, but it needs to be thought about. I'll leave it there. This is how I can how I can keep in touch on LinkedIn. Any questions or thoughts here?
What is the theme of your Penn State presentation?
It's basically the same sort of conversation, but it's going to be more on this whole, the new level playing field. And as students or as faculty, but mostly as students, what do you need to be thinking about in terms of being competitive in the marketplace? And it's sort of thinking about how to collaborate more closely with AI, how to be thinking of, working with AI and thinking about being scrappy and using all these AI tools to differentiate yourself. And when you get into a role, how to differentiate your company from another company.
One of the things we talk about here is that intersection between culture and data. And, what Penn State and Nittany Lions are talking about is what's happening with James Franklin today. And, those kinds of kind of personal things that actually are top of mind. And how does your data kind of address those fleeting cultural moments?
Absolutely. And how do you be agile? This is where social media has become so key, is because consumers want to hear about how Crest or Tide or whatever their favorite brand is, how they're relevant to these things. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Interesting stuff.
I have a geeky sort of somebody who writes about.
Any other questions or thoughts?
I've got a question, Jeff, if I may.
Sure.
Are you able to say like how much, what percentage of spend major brands are putting into AI-driven advertising, and is it like mainly coming out of a testing budget or a dedicated budget? In other words, in early days, digital was kind of testing, and then it became dedicated 20%, 25%, whatever.
Good question. I don't think there's one. First off, I don't think I could give you an answer, but I don't feel allowed to give you an answer. But I don't think I can give you an answer because I think so many of our ad units and formats are AI driven. Whether it be AI Max or Performance Max or Demand Gen. So much of it, everything's got AI built into it, and not just behind the scenes, but it's key part and parcel to audience, content, bidding.
So I mean, and AI is enhancing our experience here. But what is there a way to say like, for the Cadbury thing or the Shah Rukh Khan thing or then Serena versus Serena thing, like how much are brands dedicating to that real just sort of AI first or AI out front?
AI first creative. So especially, I think we're talking creative. I think the number's still pretty small. I would put it at probably less than 20% in terms of really AI forward creative.
Yeah.
It's really my area of specialty. And I think that number is still pretty low, but I think it's going to grow very quickly as advertisers realize that it's not only a time saver, but it's also something that can distinguish themselves in terms of creating really cool content. Right now, it's everybody saying, well, how can I get rid of some copywriters? Well, you know what? The real opportunity is how can I make my presence twice as large or, have 20,000 different versions of the ad versus two.
It's the ultimate creative optimization tool. I understand that.
Yeah. So I think that's still, I think companies are still very much in the early stages of that. So I would put that number very low. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us in the creative and the marketing space to come up with ideas to make this reality.
All right, I'm going to make Rod Laver versus Roger Federer a reality.
Exactly. Any other questions or thoughts? And I'm happy to continue these dialogues down the road. I would love to have, this is how, David, thank you for putting this forum together, because this is how great ideas come together. It's all through connecting.
I mean, this is like when someone's like, okay, well, like, oh, you know so much about AI. I'm like, no, I have the pleasure of learning from so many incredible people. And yes, like, guest speakers like yourself, but also everyone who's showing up, like, I'm learning a ton from the chat today, right? I learned a ton from the Slack. So this is just my good fortune to have a room like this I'm in every week, let alone some of the other interactions. So, it's like you and I get to spend a little bit more time on this than some other folks do.
Yeah, that's great. This is super cool. And it's changing so rapidly. So looking forward to continuing the conversation. Please let me know how I can help. Let's bounce ideas against one each other and take it from there.
Great. Look forward to sharing this. Happy to have you back, especially as you have some more ideas and examples and updates on all the exponential. I mean, it's crazy that I could see you like 1 month to the next, and so much has changed already.
It's no longer 51st years, it's 51st months.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here. Thanks everyone for joining, and amazing participation as always, and see you next week.